This September 12th, SON Estrella Galicia are back in London with their micro festival at Hackney's Paper Dress Vintage. With live music, beer culture, street food and workshops, SON Estrella Galicia is the musical arm of the family-owned independent Estrella Galicia beer brand, which has been creating unforgettable music experiences since 2009. The September the 12th event will be headlined by Coach Party with support from the New Weaves, as well as yet-to-be-announced DJ sets and local music selectors. There'll be a clothing repair workshop to customise your repaired clothes, a local food vendor serving 0 kilometre food with veggie and vegan options, a Soundcrafters interactive workshop, and a beer pouring workshop. Alongside the London event, there'll be a series of new micro-festivals in Madrid, A Coruña, Barcelona later in 2024, and Berlin and Granada in 2025, reflecting a truly global approach from SON Estrella Galicia. So if you're in London, September the 12th, swing by Hackney's Paper Dress Vintage for SON Estrella Galicia. Tickets are available now via Dice. As an independent music podcast, 101 Part-Time Jobs highly recommends DistroKid as the best solution to putting out your own music online. You can join 1 million other artists from all across the world putting out their own music on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and everywhere else across the DSPs where people are listening to your music. My dream as a kid was to run a small little label, and now with DistroKid, getting music out online is the easiest it ever has been, making 100% of your own royalties while paying a small annual fee. And that fee's even smaller as a 101 Part-Time Jobs listener. Head to distrokid.com/VIP/101pod to get 30% off your first year putting out your own music on DistroKid. Getting your own music out into the world has never been easier. Head to distrokid.com/VIP/101pod to get the best deal you can.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
It's time to get the world talking about Black-led brands. We all have our favorites, our ride or dies, and the ones we can count on to help us live out our best lives. But we can't keep them all to ourselves, so if you're feeling like Black Opal Beauty, tell somebody. If the lip bar gives you a lip for every drip, let them know. And if your hair is doing the do, shout that out too. Because one shout out leads to another, and almost half of Black-led brands are discovered by word of mouth. Join Walmart in shouting out your favorite Black-led products, creating a new world of choices at walmart.com/Black and Unlimited.
Hey, all right, how's it going? You're listening to 101 Part-Time Jobs. I'm Giles Bidder, and I speak to bands and musicians about the one thing that we all have in common, and that's going to work. On today's episode, we hear from Sarah Tudzin from Illuminati Hotties, releasing their new record, Power, out this Friday on Hopeless Records. Sarah is a really interesting character. She's been a producer and engineer on so many great records. Boygenius The Record, her production work on that, won her and the band a Grammy. She's also worked with Wise Blood, Cloud Nothings, and loads of great bands across the indie, DIY, perhaps like-minded punk spectrum. Today we hear about how she's done it. I think we've all seen how in the last couple of decades, how producing music has gone from something that's on top of a mountain and out of reach financially for so many people, and now it's come to bedrooms. So how do you stand out? How do you make something special on a more even level playing field? Which is great that everyone has the accessibility to make music, or so many people, or so many have the accessibility to make music. But how do you then keep your own identity and keep your own personality to flow through that? So here's an episode with Sarah Tudzin. Illuminati Hotties' new record, Power, is out on Friday. Go pre-save it. I hope you enjoy this chat. If you do, make sure you subscribe on Spotify or Apple, and you can give us 5 stars there. That would be really massively helpful and means that we can keep on bringing interesting and exciting guests to 101 part-time jobs. Here's Sarah Tudzin of Illuminati Hotties after the jump. 101 part-time jobs. I was just thinking, making records with people, I bet those kinds of first days and like those first couple of hours sitting down, like making hot drinks and like the introductory thing.
Yeah.
You must have got pretty good at that over the years.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely like every time I'm making an album, I'm stepping into like a project that someone else has presumably worked on for far longer than I have. So
yeah. And
so
you
I've got
can't,
to figure it out.
It's wild because there's so many bands, so many great artists out there, and you have to take each person by like their depth. Everyone is deep, man.
Yeah, definitely. Very deep. Artists are a very unique bunch of individuals from someone who works with them from the outside and also who is one from the inside.
You're sensitive folk. We're sensitive folk.
Yes, definitely.
There's got to be something in that, right? Like, I was playing songs when I was a bit younger and was lucky to play a few shows and went on tour a few times. And it's like, I look back at like what made me want to start writing songs. Mm-hmm. And I think it's because I was just super sensitive and didn't know how to deal with life.
Yeah, definitely. That's how a lot of us got started, I think, is like big emotions and like kind of like that's like an easy thing to reach for, or something that you might have access to as a kid.
And it is, access is like a guitar, right? It's like an acoustic guitar or garage band.
Exactly.
Changed for our generation, right? I remember being 15, 16, and I'm lucky because I've got older siblings who introduced me to, you know, punk and rock and Guns N' Roses, you know, like Metallica. Those are my early favorite bands.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. It's crazy. Like, I also like, I feel like I was at the dawn of the streaming era, and like everybody I knew in middle school was like, we were all like torrenting music basically off of like LimeWire. And so we had so much access to like any band we could possibly think of before it was fully available on streaming.
What was your LiveWire band? What's the memorable song or band that you were downloading?
I mean, I feel like I went through a thing of like downloading all this like sort of 2000s punk, like Green Day and Blink-182 and like bands like that. And like there's still some songs that like the MP3 compression on it is like so burned into my brain that then when I hear like the real mix, I'm like, whoa, like I don't like this sounds so good, you know?
Yeah. And when it skips.
Yeah.
If there's a skip on the original download, and like that's the one we listened to 15,000 times.
Yeah, exactly.
So where is it?
Weird. It's so weird.
Did you get GarageBand pretty early on then?
Not super early. I was like, as far as like someone who does production and engineering for like my livelihood, I was pretty like late to the game. Like it was available, when I was like maybe in middle school or high school. But we just had like a family like desktop computer for a long time that was like a Windows thing. And then sometime over the course of high school, we ended up with like a MacBook. And I just was like, I was a little bit like, had a hard time like putting 2 and 2 together as far as like writing songs in my room and then like getting them into the computer.
Okay.
Like that was a bit of like a magic trick to me still. And now I feel like just every single kid like is making amazing stuff on Ableton or Logic on their computers. And I definitely was like new to that in college, and like it all became like sort of like like everything sort of like clicked into place as
Yeah.
opposed to like before it was a little bit of like a mystery thing,
Yeah.
and it wasn't quite as ubiquitous as it is now. Like I didn't even really have my own computer till the very end of high school when I was like trying to apply to college and
Yeah.
needed it full time in a way where like I couldn't share. I was doing, at the end of high school, you're doing so much like homework and stuff.
Yeah.
And I feel like my sister was just entering high school, so she also was like needing access to something. And
You get the
I think,
discount. You get the student discount here.
yeah, you get a student discount here as well, which is really nice. And for a long time, we were coasting off of like, my dad would like basically like retire a MacBook from work, and then he would get a new computer for himself, and we would have the old one.
What did he do? Your dad?
My dad does law, just private practice, and he just kind of like for the longest time has been a self-employed like small local town lawyer.
It's a hustle still.
It is a hustle. I think I learned a lot from him in starting his own business and maintaining his own business, and we have some similar work habits, I think, and for better or for worse. And
What are they?
well, he basically, like because he runs his own business, he basically can't turn it off, like anytime, like, he's only able to make as much money as he bills time for, And similarly, like I'm only able to like make as much money as the amount of like songs that I finish for people, or or the amount of like projects that get wrapped on time. And like so like I think when other people are like reporting to work 9 to 5, they're able to come in, and then 5 p.m. happens, they shut their computer, and their brain is like doing all the fun things in their life. But for me, it's like at any time an artist can be like, we need the stems for this full record printed tomorrow,
And you don't have Wi-Fi, and you're out doing something the day, and you're like, I've got 3G, and I can't get onto the fucking site, and you hear the pennies riding on our away.
Exactly. So similarly, I think my dad has that pressure of being like, he's like always trying to catch up a little bit because it's just him, and it's like kind of like it's either contracted work or just like small stuff for the people he knows.
Money fear?
A little. I mean, money comes and money goes. I feel like
yes, it does.
Yeah, I feel lucky to have like grown up in the suburbs in a safe neighborhood, like with a backyard, but also like it wasn't always easy. In America, we lived through a huge depression, like right in the middle of high school for me. And yeah, I don't know. It is a hustle. Like, music it's so wonderful to be able to do it every day of my life and be able to pay rent. But as you know, like some years are great and some are slower.
I couldn't get my head around the idea that they're not two separate things. Creating music or booking a tour or doing that stuff, the MySpace stuff, and then like making money. It's like those two worlds couldn't exist in one for me until very recently.
Oh, cool. That's great.
And I'm not playing music, but as I'm a music journalist, doing this and some other bits and bobs. And it's like, but even it was only like, I was like 28 or 29 when I was like, okay, there is sustainability is the word, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And it's like, and just the world we live in is if you don't have like a corporate job, you're keeping a lot of balls in the air. You're juggling a lot of balls at the same time to like make ends meet. And, if it's not streaming income, maybe it's a sync that, you're making your money on that month or something.
You must have a lot of bands coming through your studio and they're working day jobs full time.
Oh yeah. 100%. I would say like 90% of bands are working day jobs because Well, also because like since the pandemic happened, like all these bands that had previously relied on touring, that went away for a couple years. So people had to get jobs to like, you know, sustain themselves through the pandemic, and as touring sort of started to pick back up again, which now it's still pretty bleak financially to be on the road.
Yeah.
And up till a certain point, like, even just like when I'm asking bands to like support hotties on tour, it's like I feel like I'm offering them guarantees that are sort of the highest limit to which we can do that and still do a profitable tour for ourselves. And it's still hard for people to like make that work for them if they're hiring band members or hiring a van or whatever.
That's tough. Those conversations are tough. I guess you have to be assertive whilst being kind. You have to be kind of all of that. That's like being a good boss, right?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, like all the love and respect to the people who can make it work or who are able to like get scrappy and,
Yeah.
do whatever they can to make it easy.
I think bands can play 1,000 cap venue out on like a 2-week tour, and maybe 1,000 cap in the New Yorks or the Londons or the big cities, maybe 700 caps on other venues, and maybe still not come home with money after all costs.
100%. It depends on how you do it. And I've sort of managed to like maintain a pretty skeleton crew for a long time. And when we first started, it was like we exclusively slept on people's floors or, relied on the generosity of people in the cities we were staying in to like lend us a place to crash for the night. And we were like in this old van that was like, I junked it in 2022 because we literally drove it into the ground. And up until the last tour, we were, it was just the 4 band members. There was no like front of house I was TMing us myself. And it was, it was just the only way to make it work to where I could pay the band what they're worth and also come home with money. Like I wasn't in a position to like be at a loss on tour,
Yeah. And you still want it to be fun. This is the thing. And like this show is a lot, it's 101 part-time jobs, 101 part-time jobs, all the jobs that go into making your art sustainable. And like the thing that I always just want to keep in there, it's like, this shit's fun. We do it because it's fun. And there has to be a kind of marriage between like organizational skills and, letting your freak flag fly and letting it all out.
100%. Yeah. It takes both. And I was actually hanging out with a friend last night who was talking about being a freak and a baby. And she was saying, you have to ramp up to being a freak and like really like lean into the freak energy when you're out in public, and then you come home and bring your baby shit back home.
Are you a freak? Have you rolled up to being a freak?
I think so. I think like there's lots of like fun, freaky things about making music, and like, you're like, I sort of have a great excuse to act like that in public because some people have decided that they want to see that, I guess.
And Power, the record's pretty freakish. It's got its moments. It's like, it's pretty colorful in moments, isn't it?
Yeah, there's some freak moments on there for sure. And it's pretty vast in like genre exploration still, while still sort of like maintaining like a pop inner thread, I think.
And it's a Hopeless Records sounding album, isn't it?
Yeah. Hopeless Records is like has such an iconic stamp on music, and like they've sort of started to like expand and like invite more types of bands onto their roster for a good reason. Like, I think they took a look at themselves in like 2020 or 2019 and realized they were really doing like one had a little bit of a monochromatic roster, and then
you can hear the triggered drums. I can hear the triggered drums.
Exactly.
And that's not even like a burn. Like a lot of stuff I like has that kind of and it's like triggered. You can hear it's triggered, but that's fine. Like there's some records that's perfect on, but you got, I don't know, for me, I can't listen to that all the time.
Of course. Yeah. And they did a great job of like expanding and sort of like realizing they had more types of music that they wanted to support and more types of people.
Pop punk's still good. I mean, I feel like there's so much good pop punk out here because there's the stuff we grew up on, and then there's the sort of like the ergsy type pop punk and the more like garagey pop punk. And then like now there's like, I mean, Neck Deep. I really like Neck Deep, and it's not usually my kind of thing. And there's just a lot of good pop punk out there.
There really is. Like I mean, like there's something very sweet about that genre that I love, and it hits all the right chords for me, like in that it's loud and it's punk, but they care about having a great chorus, and there's like, it's almost like if you imagine like a boy band like One Direction, but you like gave them all guitars and amps. Like there's something like really sweet about it that I love.
Yeah, I just interviewed the singer of the Vamps. If you've
ever, cool. Yeah.
And you know, I remember getting sent their record like 10 years ago, whenever the first one came out. And because the way they kind of look, there's an aesthetic, right? Of course, there's always going to be an aesthetic. And I'm like, and the songs were just so much poppier than what I expected. But it was funny that I was still kind of hoodwinked by the aesthetic. I'm like, this is kind of and then I meet the guy and I'm like, oh, we've had the same upbringing. We listened to the same bands when we were kids. And 100%. The difference is your band got, you know, your band, your teenage band, your first band effectively got popular.
Yeah, exactly. It's so crazy. And it's like, I mean, like, it's almost like Beatles type shit where like they're writing to like a 16-year-old girl, and like that's like a major part of the pop punk fan base is like teenage girls that like boy bands are like too soft for them, you know?
So how do we get past it now when there's like a lot of like incel type of lyrics and a lot of Descendants records I've struggled to listen to now because it's so like, you don't like me back, so fuck you and all your friends. And it's like, damn, you know, Descendants, one of my favorite bands growing up. I'm like, oh, this is pretty unescapable behavior. How do we get through that like now as people who care and like we're more aware of it?
Yeah, I mean, that's really like one of the hardest questions about music, especially like the more we know and the more is revealed about like some of these people's personal lives that's not so pretty. Like, you know, there's the whole conversation of like separating the art from the artist. Like, what does that mean? You know, like, how do we do that? Do we do that? Or do we like hold them accountable? And then there's also just sort of this like, I kind of feel like it's like watching a rom-com that came out in like 2003, you know, and you're like, I can't believe that they like wrote that monologue for Matthew McConaughey. Like that is so like misogynistic and weird, and like there's no agency in the female characters in the entire movie. Like it like falls into this like weird trope of like being like, I don't think about life like that at all. But is it a fun movie? Like, sometimes, you know? And I struggle with the Descendants too, because I also just love that band so deeply, and like that music was like felt so a part of my youth. But like there's a couple lyrics where you're like, ooh, like you really can't be saying that, and like you probably should have known better then. But also like that we're dealing with teenage boys, you know?
Kid, like people do stupid kids when they're younger.
Yeah, exactly.
I did plenty of stupid stuff, you know, like getting with someone was like a challenge, you know, trying to like get off with someone is like a challenge. And it's like,
I mean, we think about the world so differently now, and like, for better. And it's, you know, there's like sort of like a unique, well, I don't know if it's worth looking back retroactively and trying to just be like, well, that was then, this is now, or like if there's any validity in that, or if it's fully just like, let's move forward. Like we know more now. There's so much music to listen to that is not that, you know? Yeah.
I think it's conversations. And I think they're like, I mean, I reached out to someone a few months ago when I was like, oh, I'm really sorry that I was a bit of a jerk to you in school. You know, and then I wonder, oh, did I do that for me or for them?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, you know, it's a whole world down there.
Totally. Yeah. You really like, Um, I don't know. It's so interesting. Like, hopefully there was closure on both
Well,
sides.
I think like having good friends and a good partner is probably at the root, is like at central to all this stuff, because you can vocalize things and say things that you're not sure if you know. We don't all know exactly how we feel about everything to a T, do we?
Of course not. I mean, you couldn't possibly, especially when you're younger, like you can't. We've all learned so much in the scheme of the world, and also just like growing up, you learn how to be like a person better,
Yeah. You're married, right?
Yes, as of recently.
Congratulations. Is it fun?
Oh yeah, it's awesome. It's like something I never thought I would do, and here I am, and like it's just like really cool to like go through life and have a person that is like um that is down to be there for you, sort of like with with only, and the only like thing you're expected is to also be there for them,
Yeah. You share it.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
fucking sick.
It's really cool.
Sorry, you go.
That's it.
Yeah, this is really cool. It is cool.
It is. It's cool.
What are your routines like now? Like, are you waking up? Are you going into the studio?
Yeah. So, I think I spoke about this with a few other people, but a lot of writing the record was like waking up early and writing stuff, setting a timer, writing whatever, just doing like easy voice memo type demos, but like getting into that before I looked at my phone, before I made coffee, before I was eating, like
Working on someone else's record.
What's that?
Before you're working on someone else's record that day.
Yeah, before I was going to work for the day, whatever. And then kind of taking a listen later and seeing if it was like worth following through on. But now, I'm not as much in a practice of writing songs, but I do wake up and write first thing in the morning, anything. Whether even if it's just like journal, like log of the day, whatever. And yeah, I make sure to get up early enough to like allow that to be a part of my routine before an artist comes over or before I get into mixing or whatever.
Hey, that's something of getting older, I think, is enjoying the morning.
Yeah.
Actually,
totally.
like finding those 2 hours and be like, these are mine. No one can take them away from me.
It's really nice. Like no one's like texting you yet. There's not really anything like cool on the internet to look at yet. Like, it's pretty chill. And it kind of is like the only way I'm able to like do everything I need to do, I think, over the course of the day. And I don't really like, I'm not always great about like working linearly. Like I find that I'm like doing work in like bursts and chunks. And so sometimes it takes, like I find that the workday ends later or takes longer, but it's because I've like managed to sort of like expand a normal amount of work into like a huge amount of time, because I'll get up and do chores or like eat lunch or whatever,
You're a kid of the ADHD, right?
Oh yeah.
It's part of it. Are you diagnosed?
I am, and I like have recently been on a bit of an Adderall journey, trying to figure out if that works for me or not. Just because it started to bleed into my life in a way that it didn't feel good in my personal life. Like I have sort of always been like setting up traps for myself at work so I don't get like sucked into an ADHD spiral. But when it started to like affect like my day-to-day life, like personally, I kind of was like, okay, maybe I should like think about if medication is going to help or not. So I've been experimenting a little bit with like if that is the right answer, or like there's sort of like a variety of different things you can do.
For real. What was happening? How, like what specific things?
So I tried like this type of Adderall that is like long form release. So you take it like early in the day and then it just like works over the course of the day. And I felt like so much more present and like able to like sit in I was at the time, like when I started trying it, I was working on a record with a band and I was just like locked in like a really positive way. And if like somebody was asking me a question or saying like, what about this section? Da, da, da. Like, I think usually my internal temperature would start to like boil in like an unproductive way. And now I was like, hang on to that thought for 1 second. Like, I'm just going to finish, it was like much easier to like finish tasks. But at the same time, like something about the way that was working, I was really stressed at night and I didn't feel like it was like burning off in a way where I felt like I could like go to sleep and that like I was like really kind of like gritting my teeth at night. And so I'm trying a short form version basically whenever that prescription comes through of like, so I feel like it just goes away quicker and maybe it won't like last into the night in the same way.
I never even considered that internal temperature boiling. And I'm very much someone who shoots from the hip and like speaks before I think. I don't even know what it feels like to really think something really through before I speak. That's just not how I work. Yeah. And I'm like pretty accepting of that. I'm like, I didn't even know you could change that.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's more of like it just feels like the volume is at 100 on everything, even if it's like something that needs to be turned in at the end of the day or something that it's just like, oh, I got to get more eggs, that's like obviously not a task that needs to happen immediately. Like, you know what I mean? And it feels the same intensity. And so I've sort of been trying to figure out how to make those things feel more manageable.
I hate to, it's not too far away from the kind of pain equals art diagram, but do you think that kind of way of thinking, do you think that can help you write songs?
Definitely. I mean, there's something to it where it's like the way my brain works, I think, is like sort of trying to like creatively find solutions and it's like looking beyond maybe like a normal path of like, I don't know, like it just sort of works in a like this sort of like more, what's the word I'm looking for, like scattered way of thinking, I guess, could lead to like a lot of creativity. And also I feel like some of the challenges, like feeling creative and then immediately like losing the thread because you like Googled something on your phone and then 25 minutes later you're like, oh my God, I forgot I was writing a song, So yeah, it does, it's like certainly been a thing that's made me creative and also a thing that I think has like made it hard to be creative sometimes.
That we talked about like a thread. I've got this just picture of Elliott Smith above my monitor. And so I always just think about those kinds of particular lines that he would write. And it's like, it's so specific, and the specific lines. Yeah. I guess that could come from an ADHD kind of.
Totally.
place.
I mean, it's you just, I think, notice things a little differently. Like, well, everyone does. I mean, everyone's brain just works differently. But yeah, I mean, it was something that I don't think I even knew existed. And now that we have so much sort of like access to mental health at our disposal, it sort of became immediately clear. And I was like, how have I never thought of this before? It seems so obvious now. But yeah, I mean, that's cool. What photo do you have of Elliott?
It's one that I don't want to take it down just in case I can't get it back up there again.
Yeah, that's fair.
You're like, you're trying to look at the back. You're like, where is it? Where does it clip on? It takes half a day. It's one shot by a British photographer. I forget his name, but he's got like a garage full of old prints. Wow. And he's got these great photos. It's like Foo Fighters and Nirvana, and got a Nick Cave one there. And this is one he did. It's the one where he's wearing that Pirate Battalion t-shirt.
Oh, cool. Like that. Yeah. Cool.
It's a good photo. Yeah. I never got into, I was big posters when I was younger, and then for a long time just didn't have my own space really. Mm-hmm. And then eventually got a flat that I could afford. And then it took a few years, even after moving in, for it to become anything more than like a pizza smokehouse, And so now I got some nice stuff. I got nice things, a few nice things.
That's good. It's nice when it slowly transforms into like a livable environment.
Yeah. Is your studio like that? Have you cozied it up?
Yeah, at this point for sure. Like, so the place I've lived in this place for like the last 3 years, but before this I was in like a back house basically. It was basically like somebody had turned basically like a garage into like a double room, like kind of shotgun style, tiny little back house in a yard. And I turned like what should have been the bedroom into like the studio room, and then I had like my bed it was basically in
You
the
lived in
kitchen.
it as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was like, and it also it was kind of like a temporary-ish building. Like it wasn't like real insulated drywall. It was kind of like weird, like shed materials. And I had it set up in such a way that was like very pizza smokehouse style. And my partner was sort of like, this is unacceptable living. And so, you know what I mean?
You experience sometimes you experience growth in real time.
Yeah, exactly.
You feel the cogs moving. You're like, oh, I can't do this anymore.
Exactly. Well, when I moved in there, I was so excited because it was the first place I had lived where my studio wasn't also my bedroom. Like it used to be my bed and my desk, and like I was like having clients there and like working in the same space. And then this place was kind of the first place where I could be like, okay, there's a door that closes between like my studio and where my bed is. And like it felt like a huge step up and like an extremely pro move.
Yeah.
But also it was like a little bit like it wasn't really like a livable environment long term.
Were people surprised when they'd come around to track some bass and drums, and then they'd be like, "Oh, you sleep there as well?" They surprised?
I mean, it was a nice vibe because it was like up against this hill, and there was all this like trees and plants, and like it was cool. Like I don't think I scared too many people off, and like kind of once you entered the studio section, it felt like you were comfortably in there and not in someone else's space,
Where are we talking? Is this California?
Yeah, LA. So this old spot I was in a neighborhood called Cypress Park, which is kind of like east side of LA, like
Almost Cypress Hill.
Almost Cypress Hill. Yeah, exactly.
Pretty sick.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was a great little spot. And now I'm sort of I'm happy to report that my studio room and my bedroom are two completely different rooms. You can't see the bed at all from the studio, and so it's nice.
You've done some great records. Looking through like Wise Blood and the Boygenius record, which you have a Grammy for. Tim Heidecker.
Oh yeah.
And then you got like Show Me the Body.
Yeah, yeah.
Slow Dive. There's some great stuff in there. Oh, Together Pangaea. What a great band. Is Badalac on that record that you did? I don't remember. Badalac.
It's possible. That was a record that this guy I worked for, Chris Cody, was mixing, and so I was like mix assisting basically on it. And it was so long ago, I actually don't really remember what tunes are on that.
You must have done a lot of stuff before then as well. I mean, you must have done a lot of records before, like you were working on a label that had like working on a record that had a label budget or something.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there were so many just like local LA bands, friends, like just doing whatever I could. And I was lucky that at the time that I was trying to figure out like where my niche was, I was Chris Cody's engineer. And so Chris was really generous with his studio and was just like, go like use it when I'm not, Uh-huh. And so anytime he was out of town or like late at night when he was done working or like on Sundays or whatever, like I would just be in there like tracking whatever I could, either for Hotties or like any band where I was like, listen, like I have a free, awesome studio. So like, let's do this, Yeah.
I imagine it must be hard having this thing where running a studio seems a bit like being in a band, but there's an obvious revenue flow. Yeah. So I imagine while you're trying to build your studio and trying to build up your production credits, trying to make more ace sounding records and making your own portfolio, the more time you're doing other work, working at a supermarket or as a server, whatever it is, that's hard enough when you play in a band. But when it's going away from actually your other thing that could actually make money by itself, imagine that must have been frustrating.
Definitely. I mean, like it's it's such a weird balancing act, and I think like the main thing is that it feels so much more fulfilling to your soul to be making music. So that is like a good enough reason to kind of just like tough it out through a job that's like, like the benefit of having that type of job is it doesn't take brain power or creative energy in that same way. It's you can kind of like emotionally disconnect and just be there to cash the check, which is like, you know, certainly important. So,
Yeah,
but
I mean,
then
it's hard to talk about these things without being like, oh my God, am I being flippant about this and that? I think that's just the way money works. You can't talk about money without being scared about sounding flippant, in case that's the
yeah,
way you're feeling then,
of course. And it's like, you know, it's hard. Like it takes energy to be at any type of job. Um, but when bands come through and they're doing like like maybe they're working at a bar at night, and so it's like we can only record till 4 p.m. today because then you have to go open. Um,
So it affects
like
not just you, it affects the people that you're working with.
of course, yeah. So then it's like, okay, like how do we have a productive day where they're excited and they still have the energy they need to go to work? Like there's just or are they just going to burn the candle at both ends through the course of like making this record, which is also, it's up to the person, I guess, that I'm making a record with. But it's just like one of those things where some people love doing their jobs like that, I think, and they have like good friend groups or they work for a company that's cool that like knows that they're going to take off time to go on tour or whatever. And sometimes it's definitely like the bane of a band's existence or a producer's existence.
Yeah. And I no one fucking knows. It's just up to the person, right?
Exactly. And like I've been pretty lucky, like since college, I sort of tried to like, even if I was doing the minimum wage hourly grind, I tried to keep it in the music world. And I tried to like find things that were like, even just like working for like a licensing company, entering metadata to their like library catalog, or like I was a runner at like a big like label owned studio for a while, and like it was like cleaning toilets, and it was going to get lunch for people, and it wasn't really making music, but it was being around the music. And I tried to do as much of that as possible so I could basically like open up as many opportunities to jump into the actual music making.
It's smart because you hang around people who care about music, and that bleeds out into, you can't help but not be inspired by that. Equally, like if you hang out with people who don't care about music, that's going to dullen your excitement. I think. I don't think anyone's immune to that.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you've done a lot. You've done a lot of those side gigs.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, all through even like high school and college, it was like, if I wanted like money to buy a guitar pedal or to like go to the movies or whatever, like do anything beyond like what was provided by like my parents making sure I didn't starve or something. Which is such a huge benefit, by the way. I any sort of like disposable income or like stuff I wanted to do with friends, or like once I was in college, like even just like rent, groceries, whatever, like I needed to like maintain some kind of income to do that. So I guess once I entered the real world, like post educational structure, I sort of was like hip to the grind a little bit, which I don't think is the case for everyone leaving college necessarily.
Yeah. I mean, I'm lucky enough that like my mum helped me out with rent once or twice in my life, which is awesome. And I slept at a house for a long time, slept at my dad's for a long time. I still don't think I understood the true value of money until later on.
Of
I
course,
think that's a pretty hard lesson.
It's hard to know, and it changes also all the time, like with, not only economically, but also like when you're at a different income level, your relationship to money changes, like if you're like, I'm eating ramen this week because that's the money that you've made, like that's what you can afford. Money means something different to you than when you're like at a place where you're like, yeah, I can do Postmates twice a week and or like whatever, Grubhub,
I like having a bit of money now. I like treating
Yeah.
myself to dinner.
It's a little bit. There's two wolves inside me, truly, and one is like a punk being like, you don't need anything, and the other one is like, you know what? It's really nice that like when my couch broke in half, I could buy a new couch from somewhere.
I used to think that I was bad with money. I wasn't bad
Yeah.
with money. I just didn't have any of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard when you're starting out. Like, how could you have any of it? Unless you were born into a situation where you're starting like at a higher level, which no shade. That's like a completely random. It's just your life, how you're born.
My favorite, I met my partner when I was on Universal Credit, which is like government support, and it was a fucking awesome 2 years. It was a great way to spend the first 2 years of a relationship because you're just free all the time.
Yeah, I mean, like there is a benefit to that space, and I think it's not ideal as far as like there's just I guess I don't know, like I'm sort of like in this world of like there should be like a universal basic income, like everyone, no matter what, should have the opportunity to like not to like live in a home, like, and we should be covering that baseline expense even if it means taxes go up or whatever. Like I just think that there's in LA specifically, like the houseless crisis is huge, and like to me, like that seems like a clear way out is be like, here's this amount of money, it's going to cover rent at this type of apartment, and then if you want to like work to expand beyond that, that's up to you, but at least you won't be living on the street.
I think it'd be pretty hard to build a case that people would not be happier. I think people would have more time to be creative and to paint and to write and to read.
Yeah, it would certainly like make life easier for people in creative spaces, and it would make life easier for people who, against their own sort of like best intentions, have ended up without a house and without income.
That's it. Hey, good to chat. Thanks so much for the time.
Yeah, thank you. I can't wait till, when does this come out?
I'm going to put it out tomorrow. Fuck it.
Hell yeah, I love that.
Record's out this Friday. You excited about it?
I'm so excited. It's really, it's a fun thing to share music with people again.
And you sit online, you wait until midnight and you're refreshing on Thursday night?
Oh yeah, I mean, you gotta do it. I have a little listening party set up in LA for people who want to come celebrate with me. So
where is it?
We might run it back. It's at Frogtown Brewery in Frogtown in LA. And what time? I actually have no idea it's probably 7 or 8. I don't know.
I'll be there.
Oh, okay, awesome. Yeah, come through.
It's not private, is it? This is going out.
No, not at all.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, what's the biggest fuck up that you've made at work?
So many things. Like, I've fucked up so many times at work. I think like mainly, especially early on when you're like really getting a handle of like file management and stuff. Like there's been a couple times where I've been like, that session has disappeared. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, I've lost a day or 5 days of work and we're just going to have to redo it, which is such a horrible feeling. And I have an insane system of backups now to ensure that like that kind of thing doesn't happen. But it is just, once it happens, like it only has to happen once for you to realize that you need to like get your backups happening,
Imagining that happen. Oh, don't imagine that happening on like one of the records that someone's paid you a lot of money.
Yeah,
Or the
I mean, at
Boygenius
this point,
record. You're like,
no chance it was happening on the Boygenius record. There's just you can't come back from that. But unlike lower stakes stuff, there has been stuff where I'm like, yeah, you're gonna just have to re-sing all those vocals, you know?
hey, you're better now. You know, it's a day. You're a better singer than you were yesterday.
Exactly. You did the practice. This is the real deal.
That's like practice of becoming a parent. It's like how you say things.
Exactly. Yeah.
You must be a pretty good people management. You know, managing people person.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know, so much of producing is like you're thrown into a room with like four people that either have the same exact opinion or completely different opinions, and like you have to negotiate all of that knowing that like these four people are in a band together. So like there is some sort of hierarchy within the band that is like sometimes not clear, you know? And some bands are like, we all have to like agree 100%. It has to be a universal, like whatever, like everyone has to vote the same for a decision to happen. And some bands, it's just like, there's a person who's like, I wrote this song, so it's actually going to be this way, you know? And you're thrown in there as like a bystander where you're like, okay, like I have to sort of make everyone happy. And then also now, like on bigger records, there's also A&R people from the label that are listening and have opinions. There's managers that want to have an opinion. There's, you know, just like so many different personalities. And like, to me, I'm just trying to make like a product that everyone is excited about and that we all want to, you know, there's wins and there's certainly like the things that get put on a record that not everyone is like excited about, or things that don't make it that I was maybe really excited about. But yeah, there's a lot of like personality negotiation.
You got to be the posse person. You got to be the like, come on guys, let's go to the theme park. What are we doing today? Let's eat some ice cream.
Yeah, I do try and be a good cop most of the time, and there's been a rare situation where I'm like, you just have to do it this way, you know? And that doesn't always fly, but sometimes like that's what a band needs, a little bit of like leadership or something in the room.
Yeah. Well, it's good that you're your own leader with Hotties.
Yeah, that is like my one place to flex and like, you know, indulge in all of my things that I would love to do on other people's records, but you know, maybe they don't want to go down that path, or it's just not the right sound or whatever. Like,
well, it sounds awesome. The guitar tones are great. Like that last track, what's it called?
Thank you.
It's got Everything Changes. I mean, that's like a gorgeous acoustic tone. I bet you had fun with the tones.
Absolutely, I always do. It's, you know, it's the one space where I'm sort of afforded the time and freedom to just like go down a rabbit hole like that.
Yeah. And will you spend like a day or 5 days trying to find a snare sound?
Yeah, sometimes, you know, like the drummer. So Jason McGurr played drums on a lot of this record from Death Cab for Cutie. And he rolled up to the studio literally with a pickup truck bed full of drums. And like, I mean, he brought everything, and like we had just like, he knows that all of his instruments so well that I could say like a drum that's a little more wet or a little more low, and he would just reach for the right things. Yeah. And then Brendan McCusker, who plays drums with us live, also did like a round of drums on some of these songs. And he also kind of came through with like a bunch of options and that he knows very well. So luckily, between myself trying to find like new sounds and crazy sounds, and these drummers both being like really specific and having the materials to play with, like it made it really fun.
You like a pig in shit.
Yeah, exactly.
This is my place.
Yeah, 100%.
So there was Sarah Tudzin here on 101 Part-Time Jobs. Illuminati Hotties' new record, Power, is out this Friday. You can go find that everywhere you're streaming, and maybe you can pick it up from your local record store. We've got a great new record store down in Southeast London called Upside Down Records. So if you're in London, Southeast London, Upside Down Records, come and find it. It's got a great punk rock section. Cheers for being here. If you like this episode, make sure you leave 5 stars wherever you're listening to this, on Apple or Spotify. Maybe it reads, sounds like a 4, but you give it a 5. Thanks for all your help, and see you later on in the week with a new episode.
101 Part-Time Jobs is hosted by Giles Bidder and produced by me, Olivia Swash. This has been a Mighty Moon Media production.
This September 12th, SON Estrella Galicia are back in London with their micro festival at Hackney's Paper Dress Vintage. With live music, beer culture, street food and workshops, SON Estrella Galicia is the musical arm of the family-owned independent Estrella Galicia beer brand, which has been creating unforgettable music experiences since 2009. The September the 12th event will be headlined by Coach Party with support from the New Weyes, as well as yet-to-be-announced DJ sets and local music selectors. There will be a clothing repair workshop to customise your repaired clothes, a local food vendor serving 0 kilometre food with veggie and vegan options, a Soundcrafters interactive workshop, and a beer pouring workshop. Alongside the London event, there will be a series of new micro-festivals in Madrid, A Coruña, Barcelona later in 2024, and Berlin and Granada in 2025, reflecting a truly global approach from SON Estrella Galicia. So if you're in London, September the 12th, swing by Hackney's Paper Dress Vintage for SON Estrella Galicia. Tickets are available now via Dice. As an independent music podcast, 101 Part-Time Jobs highly recommends DistroKid as the best solution to putting out your own music online. You can join 1 million other artists from all across the world putting out their own music on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and everywhere else across the DSPs where people are listening to your music. My dream as a kid was to run a small little label, and now with DistroKid, getting music out online is the easiest it ever has been, making 100% of your own royalties while paying a small annual fee. And that fee's even smaller as a 101 Part-Time Jobs listener. Head to distrokid.com/VIP/101pod to get 30% off your first year putting out your own music on DistroKid. Getting your own music out into the world has never been easier. Head to distrokid.com/VIP/101pod to get the best deal you can.